I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. And now we continue with Ezra. This will be chapter 4. Now remember, our beginning of Ezra was, we had the return, the decree of Cyrus for the Jews to return. Second chapter was a list of all the Jews who did return. And chapter 3, they restored the altar, started sacrifice, and built the foundations for the temple. Chapter 4. Samaritans offer help, then hinder the work. Building of the temple and of walls of Jerusalem ceases. Now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord God of Israel, then they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers, and said unto them, Let us build with you, for we seek your God, as ye do, and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Ashur, which brought us up hither. But Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, Ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our God, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord God of Israel, as King Cyrus the king of Persia hath commanded us. Then the people of the land weakened the hands of the people of Judah, and troubled them in building, and hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose, all the days of Cyrus king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius king of Persia. And in the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, wrote they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem. So the Samaritans, these are the people, there is a blend of Israelite and non-Israelite ancestry. And remember when it says Esarhaddon of Ashur, this is talking about Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria. He took the northern kingdom captive and brought in new settlers. But they were having troubles, and so they said, we have troubles because we don't know how to worship the God of this land. And so he then shipped in some of Israel. He brought them back in to teach the people there how to worship God properly. And that's who is here now. This is the descendants of those people. This is 300 years later. So the descendants of this mix of Israelite and non-Israelite people who have a blended religion. They have the pantheon of gods that we now call the Canaanite pantheon. But it started with God, and then they brought in all these other ones. It didn't start with the Canaanites, and then they slowly became monotheistic. No, they started with God, brought in all the others. But anyways, so now they hear that the Jews are coming back and rebuilding the temple. And to them, this is a great thing, because they do worship God. Now, it's, as I said, it's a blended religion, so they worship other gods as well, but they are themselves excited about the building of this temple. Now, I don't know exactly how right Zerubbabel and Jeshua were in outright refusing their help. I think they could have said, the temple will build, but we have some other work that you could help us with that will make the work go easier for us. The reason why they didn't want their help is because they are blended. They're not pure Israelite descent anymore. They are a mix, and they are worshiping many other gods. And so if they were to help with the temple, that would, in a sense, give legitimacy to all the other gods they worship. And it would tempt the Jews, the returning Jews, to start worshiping other gods as well. And they're saying, no, we can't do that. But I think they could have given them something to do. Maybe they could have helped build the rest of the city so that the Jews could focus on the temple. But, be it as it may, this is what they did. And because they would not accept their help, the Samaritans started doing everything they could against the Jews. Now, they didn't go into outright violence. They weren't attacking them. But they were hiring counselors. They were hiring lawyers and making petitions to the courts and to the government to try and stop the work. And they did this all through the reign of Cyrus. They did it into the reign of Darius. They did it in the reign of Ahasuerus. They sent petitions in all these guys' reigns in order to stop the work. Now, before I continue, there's one last thing I have to mention, is that in my introduction, I presented a timeline. And that is the most generally accepted timeline. That in Cyrus is the first return. During Darius, they rebuild the temple. And then in Artaxerxes, Darius' grandson, they have Ezra and Nehemiah. This chapter seems to contradict that. I'm not going to go into detail on it right now, but as you've noticed, we've had Cyrus, then Darius, and then Ahasuerus. So if the temple was built in the days of Darius, then how are we moving past him? That's all I'm going to say right now. Consider that. I am going to do a supplemental video talking about this timeline and what is presented here in Ezra chapter 4. But that will be a separate video, probably not until I get to the end of the book of Nehemiah, which will be a little ways out. Give me some time to do some more research, but keep an eye out for that. The timeline does have issues here in chapter 4. But let us continue reading. Verse 7. And in the days of Artaxerxes wrote Bishlam, Mithredash, Tabeel, and the rest of their companions unto Artaxerxes, king of Persia. And the writing of the letter was written in the Syrian tongue, and interpreted in the Syrian tongue. Raham the chancellor, and Shimshai the scribe, wrote a letter against Jerusalem to Artaxerxes the king in this sort. Then wrote Raham the chancellor, and Shimshai the scribe, and the rest of their companions, the Dinaites, the Apharsathites, the Tarpelites, the Apharsites, the Archivites, the Babylonians, the Susankites, the Dehavites, and the Elamites, and the rest of the nations whom the great and noble and Napper brought over and set in the cities of Samaria, and the rest that are on this side the river, and at such a time. Very interesting names there. These are the people who are west of the Euphrates River. Persia itself is east of the Euphrates River, and this is those who are west of the Euphrates River. That's what it means by on this side of the river, at least most likely talking about the Euphrates. Verse 11. This is the copy of the letter that they sent unto him, even unto Artaxerxes the king. Thy servants, the men on this side of the river, and at such a time, be it known unto the king that the Jews which came up from thee to us are come unto Jerusalem, building the rebellious and the bad city, and have set up the walls thereof, and joined the foundations. Be it known now unto the king, that if this city be builded, and the wall set up again, then will they not pay toll, tribute, and custom, and so thou shalt endamage the revenue of the kings. Now, because we have maintenance from the king's palace, and it was not meet for us to see the king's dishonor, therefore have we sent and certified the king, that search may be made in the book of the records of thy fathers. So shalt thou find in the book of the records, and know that this city is a rebellious city, and hurtful unto kings and provinces, and that they have moved sedition within the same of old time, for which cause was the city destroyed. We certify the king that, if this city be builded again, and the walls thereof set up, by this means thou shalt have no portion on this side the river. This kind of makes me think that they're actually talking about west of the Jordan River, but it still could be west of the Euphrates. But what they're saying here, basically, this city has been rebellious in the past. Look at the records, look at the history. Every king that has tried to conquer it, or even who has conquered it, has found it to be hard to control. They've always rebelled, and if you let them rebuild it, they're going to rebel again. So that's the message. Verse 17. Then said the king in answer unto Raham the chancellor, and to Shimshai the scribe, and to the rest of their companions that dwell in Samaria, and unto the rest beyond the river, peace, and at such a time. The letter which ye sent unto us hath been plainly read before me, and I commanded, and search hath been made, and it is found that this city of old time hath made insurrection against kings, and that rebellion and sedition have been made therein. There have been mighty kings also over Jerusalem, which have ruled over all countries beyond the river, and toll, tribute, and custom was paid unto them. Give ye now commandment to cause these men to cease, and that this city be not builded until another commandment shall be given from me. Take heed now that ye fail not to do this. Why should damage grow to the hurt of the kings? Now when the copy of King Artaxerxes' letter was read before Raham and Shimshai the scribe and their companions, they went up in haste to Jerusalem unto the Jews, and made them to cease by force and power. Then ceased the work of the house of God, which is at Jerusalem. So it ceased unto the 2nd year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia. So Artaxerxes, he makes this search in the records. He finds the history. He says, yeah, you're right. They've been very rebellious. Until I can sort this out, let's just stop everything and we'll figure it out later. That's basically, he's not saying that they are going to be seditious. He's saying we need to figure out what's going on first. Stop the work until I can do further investigation. And so they go, and they say by force and by power. In other words, they are going in and forcibly removing people from the temple site, basically. They're, if anybody tries to work on the temple, they're being arrested. This is what force and power means. Now, on a final note, again, the timeline here that we have, in Cyrus, then Darius, then Ahasuerus, then Artaxerxes, and it stops until the reign of Darius again. Our timeline is not working out according to what most scholars claim. But as I said, I will do a separate video on that later. Right now, just focus on the main story. Samaritans offer help, they are rejected, and so they do everything they can to prevent the temple from being built, and finally succeed in getting a decree from the king of Persia to end the work. And so the work stops. We leave that here. We will actually be turning to some of the prophets next. We got a few prophets left in the Old Testament, so we'll read some of that, and then, well, we'll see how it goes. See you there.